So I think like 90% of people had the same opinion when they saw that Rajon Rondo, Dwyane Wade, and Jimmy Butler were on the same team for the Chicago Bulls, which is they're not going to be able to shoot. They might be some talented guys who know how to go one-on-one, especially when you're talking about Dwyane Wade and Jimmy Butler, and they can beat guys off the dribble and they can get inside and all that good stuff. But if you have three guys who are not outside shooters, it was going to be really tough to drive inside because the defense would be able to just bring help defense on you and you'd be kind of screwed. It just would be a lot of bad spacing, and it just seemed like a team that was not meant to be good in 2016, about to be 2017. And of course, we're only 2 games into the season now, but the Bulls have looked pretty damn good so far, and they've surprised some people. They've surprised me, definitely. And in the 2 games for them, I watched their first game. They were facing my Celtics. The second game, they were playing the Pacers. They blew them out. I wasn't able to watch the game, but I have caught some highlights, so hopefully I have at least a decent enough idea of why they won that game. What I'll say about the Celtics game is they just made their threes. Jimmy Butler made 4 threes. I know at least 2 of them off the top of my head were with a guy in his face. And then Dwyane Wade went 4 for 6 from 3 as well, and I'm pretty sure all 4 of his were with a defender near him, but giving him just enough space to be like, okay, I'm going to give you that 3-pointer. And Rondo even hit an outside shot of his own, so when 3 guys who are not known as 3-point shooters hit like 9 of them on you, that's just GG. So they did a great job in that first game. They just proved the Celtics wrong. They were just like, look, if you're going to give us these shots, we're going to take them and we're going to make them. And if they're making those threes throughout the entire season, then these guys are, of course, going to be extremely difficult to deal with, because then you're looking at Dwyane Wade and Jimmy Butler, 2 guys who can drive inside, and then if the other one can hit threes for them, then that's great. Now, in the case of Rajon Rondo, his playmaking has been there, but my thing with Rondo has always been, I don't want him to be the ball stopper who holds the ball for 15 seconds while the offense does whatever, and then he finally passes to a guy, and then it results into a missed shot or an assist for Rondo. Up to this point, it seems like that has not been the case with him. It's been more of him attacking inside and then being able to dish off to guys. I mean, a specific highlight I remember from the Pacers game is Rondo just was able to get by his defender. I think it was on a fast break. And he just went inside, and then he just did a little dish off to Robin Lopez. And that's the type of stuff I want from Rondo, because even if he's not able to be a real outside threat, I mean, hell, maybe he is at this point, but if he's not able to be that, just be someone who's going to attack inside, because that was his thing with the Celtics. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to kill you with my 3-ball, but I can still attack, and I can still get by my defender, and I can get into the paint, so my playmaking can still be effective. Up to this point with the Bulls, he has done that, so that's good. Also, when I'm talking about that Celtics game, I want to say that the Bulls' off-ball defense was actually really good, because the Celtics, they're a team that they run a lot of off-ball stuff, whether it's off-ball screens that lead to cuts, or guys running around screens, or they'll do a pick and roll, or they'll do handoffs, or they'll have Isaiah Thomas dribble up court, pass the ball off to the wing, immediately run across some screens, get the ball back, and it leads into a pick and pop, things like that. In other words, they move around a lot, and you have to be ready to defend that, and the Bulls were. Like, the Celtics, I think they still played well overall in that Bulls game, but I do think that that Chicago was just very good at making it a little tougher on the Celtics. You know, when they want to have Avery Bradley cut baseline, no, you're right there ready to stop him. Things like that. The little things that make it a close game at the end of the fourth quarter rather than you being down by like 5 points. So if they can maintain that throughout the season, then that's fantastic. But now if we get to the Pacers game, I think one thing that was a little underestimated with these Bulls is they have a lot of guys who might not be 15-plus point scorers, but they are competent offensive players in the sense of, like, they know how to finish well around the basket. That would be Taj Gibson as well as Robin Lopez, who both had over 10 points against the Pacers. And I already mentioned before, like Robin Lopez, he received a dish-off from Rajon Rondo, who was able to drive inside. There was also a pick and pop with Rondo and Taj Gibson, Well, it was a pick and pop that turned into Gibson dunking because Al Jefferson doesn't know how to play defense. But little things like that just add up. They also had Doug McDermott, who finished with 23 points, including 5 3-pointers. And I saw some of them. A lot of McDermott's points, I don't want to say a lot, that sounds disrespectful, but definitely a few of his points were in garbage time when the game was already over. But he also had a few floppy plays with like Monte Ellis covering him, which were good baskets when it was still a close game in like the first quarter. And I also want to talk about Doug McDermott for a second. When McDermott entered the NBA, this is just my opinion, it seemed like he was a guy who was a little too heavy, but at the same time like not strong and athletic enough to compete in the NBA, even if he was a good shooter. It seems like he's slimmed down. He's got some more definition in his arms. He looks a little lighter, but it seems like he's also gotten stronger at the same time because he was able to just hang around inside against Indiana. He also had a couple of like fast break points where he was the guy dribbling the ball going down floor, and he actually looked kind of fast. So if Doug McDermott has made improvements from a physical standpoint while still maintaining his jump shot, then he could be a very good player for the Bulls, probably as their sixth man. As for Dwyane Wade against the Pacers, he had like 14 points. A lot of them were just like one-on-ones against Monte Ellis, which is okay. I mean, I think Dwyane Wade's a really good isolation player, so that works. Jimmy Butler also contributed like 18 of his own points. 16, what am I talking about? So I think one thing we're seeing with them is like they have a couple of guys in like Doug McDermott, Robin Lopez, Taj Gibson, who do a good job of playing off of the big three, and then the big three has, I mean, they definitely surprised a couple of people. Well, me for one, with all the threes they hit against the Celtics, and then Rondo being more willing to attack the basket. So that's good, but I also think one thing we're seeing, and I think this is a combination of one, Rajon Rondo being a smart point guard, and then Fred Hoiberg improving as a head coach, is they're taking advantage of deficiencies that the other team has. For example, against the Pacers, the Indiana had Jeff Teague as well as Al Jefferson in the game at one point. I have this clip on my Twitter, by the way. And they just run a pick and roll with Rondo and Taj Gibson, knowing that Teague and both Al Jefferson are not really that great of defensive players, and it results in a basket. Also, they run Dwyane Wade isolations on Monte Ellis because Monte is not that good of a defender. They have Doug McDermott running floppy sets to being defended by Monte. Like, that's one of those things that definitely gives you a few more wins if you're just a smart team. Like, if you realize the other team has a bad defender on them, we'll go at him and run different sets against him, and they have done that. Also, another thing, and I think this is also a testament to how smart they are, is there have been situations, specifically in the Pacers game, one play in particular that I remember, where Jimmy Butler ended up wide open on the perimeter, and instead of just hoisting up a three-pointer, he noticed that the defense was sagging off of him because I think it was Rondo or Mirotic or somebody was driving inside, so they were paying attention to him. And so Jimmy gets the ball on the top of the key wide open, and he just cuts inside and finishes at the rim because he can do that. So even if they're not going to be great three-point shooters for the entire season, they are still very good cutters. Like Dwyane Wade's a great cutter. Butler's a very good cutter as well. They're smart players. They recognize when there's a seam in the defense, and they will attack it. There's also another moment in the Indiana game where Jeff Teague ended up on Jimmy Butler, and I think Rondo walking up floor noticed that, and then he just threw a lob to Jimmy around the basket, and Teague had no chance of defending it. Again, these are the kinds of things that can take you from like a 40-win team to a 45-win team, just knowing the right thing to do and noticing when there's a mismatch on the floor. And I think another thing we underestimated with these guys is Rondo, Dwyane Wade, and Jimmy Butler can all lead a fast break. So it makes it to where they can get out in transition pretty easily because all you have to do is hit one of those guys and they're immediately gone. Because, you know, some teams it's like only the point guard can lead the fast break, and those couple of seconds it takes to like find the point guard, hit him, and by that time the defense has already gotten back. But if you can just pick any of the three and just pass it to one of them, and you can immediately get a fast break going, that'll definitely get you a few extra transition points. Not only that, but All three of these guys are good rebounders for their positions, so one of them could just grab the rebound and immediately be gone themselves. So when we look at a team that's just smart and knows when to cut to the basket, knows when to take advantage of a mismatch or just to go at a guy who's not good defensively, as well as a team that has three guys who could lead fast breaks, on top of having a couple of complementary players who know what they're doing in Taj Gibson, Robin Lopez, as well as Doug McDermott, and hopefully their defense as well as their health just holds up, I could definitely see how the Bulls could get into the playoffs in the East. Now, am I still worrisome about some things with these guys? Yes, I am worrisome if Dwyane Wade can handle an 82-game season. I'm fearful that their shooting is just going to fall off a cliff because neither one of these three guys have really been outside shooters for extended periods of their career. But as of right now, they've looked really damn good, and perhaps they could keep it going.